Now
Okay, how do you calculate how much harm a slur does?
By the stigmatization, by the weaponization, by the ability of it to harm people in real life. You know,
How would Twitch do that? How would Twitch do that? Explain the process to me of their So you're saying that we need to base TOS on a harm principle of slurs. So what process would Twitch go through to calculate what the harm principle that you're concerned about in order to get their TOS where they need to be?
I think it's been fairly obvious. It's been fairly demonstrated at this point that the N-word is harmful. It's harmful to black people. And encourages...
No, that doesn't work. I need you to explain to me what...
Of course, because you're a class reductionist, you're going to argue that point. But
wait, class reductionist, I don't know why you're mentioning that. I'm asking a very simple question. I feel like you're just trying to, insult my integrity. But that's okay. We'll get to that. So what I'm going to ask you again very clearly. You said that the TOS needs to be based on a harm principle. So what I'm asking you to... Harm reduction principle. What I'm asking you to do for me is explain to me what process Twitch would go through in order to determine and establish this harm reduction principle and apply that at the TOS level. Go on.
It's self-obvious. There is no scientific way to do this. Look, do you believe that the majority of
I think this is a great one to ask this person then. Which one is worse, the T slur or the N word? Which one is worse, right? I think that's a great one to use. And if they bite the bullet on one, okay, which one's worse, the T slur or the F word, right? And then you make them do this oppression Olympics thing and then realize how fucking stupid it is to be able to do this shit. And instead, it should just be based on, is it a fucking slur? And that's what it should be based on. I would say the T slur. If you want to make that argument, you can. Yeah, dude, we're going to have the slur T list. Exactly. One N-word equals 2 T-slurs. Yeah, that's what I mean. And then the problem, you understand the ethical problem with that, right? Like, everybody understands that if you put the N-word or the T-slur as higher than the other one respectively, that naturally speaking, the other group is going to be like, what the fuck, homie? Right? Like, so, I don't know. That's crazy. That's crazy, dude. Maybe we just shouldn't say slurs. Maybe that's something we can do. Did Hassan already do a slur tier list? He did for white people, yeah. And I trade my N-word pass for like a 5 C-word pass. Yeah, we got the exchange. It's like the stock exchange. Dude. 1 N-word pass. I need 10 R-word passes. It's like, hey, listen, 10. Do I hear 10? Do I hear 15? 15, 15, 16, 16 for N-word pass. Premium N-word pass. Hard R in public. Hard R in public. I got 16 of the R-word. 15 of the K-word. 15 of the K-word. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. What is this argument, bro? The fucking exchange, the fucking auction house, bro.
Sorry.
No. Hold on.
No. Answer my question.
Do you think that the majority of linguists think that the N-word
it's gonna be an NFT, dude,
and the C slur are equally harmful?
I'm sorry. I'm not going to answer any more questions until you answer mine. I'll repeat it again. Which is what? Okay, wait. I'll ask it again because clearly we're having trouble getting past this. It's a very simple question. Okay, you believe that slurs at the TOS level should be based on a harm reduction principle. So what I'm asking you is what process would Twitch go through in order to establish this harm reduction principle and apply that at the TOS level?
Chud, it's pretty self-obvious.
John, thank you for the sub. And
it's more harmful than the C slur.
Bobo Drew.
Okay?
Thank you for the
idea.
Tier 1
how would
sub.
Twitch work that
What do you mean,
out?
how would Twitch work that out?
Well, it's a simple question. How would Twitch work that out? How would they know?
It's
okay.
Not that easy.
Do you actually think that we have not came up with ways to identify the harmful effects of slurs, or do you think? Wait! You have said yourself you don't agree that the N-word is as harmful as the C slur. You have said that yourself.
Correct. I can have that personal opinion, but we're talking about Twitch applying a TOS. So the reason I'm asking you this is I'm trying to understand how your theory of how they should operate TOS would work in practice. So can you explain that to me, please?
I can absolutely give you a concrete reason for this. Ready?
I don't want a reason. Okay. I want to understand how Twitch would do it.
So what Chudlogic would so let's assume that I was the dipshit here, all right? I would need to give a reasoning that looks a little something like this. Okay, so the premises for what makes something bad are 1, a racist history used to be able to enslave a group of people. If the group of people were not enslaved, you do not get one racism point, or one bad slur point. So that's one bad slur point. Second bad slur point would be, I don't know, presently used as a derogatory term in mainstream media. Oh, you couldn't really quantify that. Presently used, I guess you could try and make an appeal to like some form of other TOS, and whether or not it can, but like that would then be cyclical. Presently used as a derogatory term, I guess you could say, but then that gets really slippery because there are many things that are used as a derogatory term, but I guess we could go with it. Presently used as a derogatory term gets you another bad boy point. And whether or not this group of people are systemically oppressed, and that like couldn't even be in a TO. I wouldn't even know how to do this. I don't think this is possible. But that's what they're looking for, right? I don't think it's possible, but I tried my best. I don't think it's possible. Obviously, that's why the person can't do it, and that's why Chud, is asking pretty directly, because they already know the answer to this, is because it can't be done. But like that would be what Chud would be looking for, is a criteria that's like this, that hits, this is what is necessary for this to be considered a slur in TOS, and like it's like the DSM-5. There's a whole list of symptoms or whatever, or premises, and once, let's say, 5 of those premises are hit, boom, it's a slur, right?
Where's the manager?
Nice. Oh, my bad.
Okay, this is quite nuanced and complicated. Number 1, when a person of color calls someone the C word, they are calling someone a general person, majority person in society.
I don't need your lecture about the C word. I want to know how Twitch would. I don't give a shit about your fucking woke bullshit fucking lecture. What I need to understand is the process that Twitch would go through.
Racist there. So number 1.
Wait, hang on. What did I say that's racist?
You're using woke in a pejorative, even though the original definition
You're making a pejorative. Oh no, cry me a fucking river. Okay, listen, I don't give a shit about.
What the fuck? Are you really trying that? Is that real? That, god damn, that reach. Holy fuck. Oh my god.
About that. What I want you to do is go back to my question,
really?
And I don't give a shit about your fucking bullshit fucking, language policing, I think we all know what my perspective.
Shut up. Is your position just abolish all linguistics? Is that just...
I think that we all know what my position is on language policing. I don't think you want to go down that road, buddy, okay?
Yes,
I don't care about your fucking bullshit lecture, okay, on the word woke or the word, what the C word means.
He says
you don't have to get overly emotional.
I want a simple. Shut up, you fucking nerd. I want a simple answer to a simple question.
Okay.
How would Twitch? I'm going to ask you again.
Dude, that hit so hard, dude. That hit so fucking hard, dude. That hit so fucking hard, dude. I don't know why, dude. It felt like he said the N-word, dude. I don't know why. It felt so spiteful, dude. You can feel the hate, dude.
Okay? Yes, I don't care. I don't care about your fucking bullshit lecture, okay, on the word woke or the word, what the...
Hold up, I gotta...
Oh no, cry me a fucking river, okay? Listen, I don't give a shit about that. What I want you to do is go back to my question.
Really?
The other
I don't give a shit about your fucking bullshit fucking, language policing, I think we all know what my perspective...
Shut up. Is your position just abolish all linguistics? Is that just...
I think that we all know what my position is on language policing. I don't think you want to go down that road, buddy, okay?
Yes, because you don't believe in linguistics.
I don't care about your fucking bullshit lecture, okay, on the word woke or the word, what the C word means. I asked you a simple question.
You don't have to get overly emotional.
I want a simple... Shut up, you fucking nerd. I want a simple answer to a simple question.
Okay.
How would Twitch... I'm going to ask you again. How would Twitch implement the TOS that you were suggesting? Go on.
In order to...
Dude, I'm crying, man. Holy shit, dude. Oh my god.
explain that, I have to go through the first part.
I'm not interested in your lecture, you nerd. I just want you to explain to me. Just give me an overview of
Why
how
do you
Twitch...
do this toxic masculine type of shit every day?
Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. I just want you to explain to me, okay? Very simple, okay? How would Twitch calculate this slur fucking harm index you're worried about, and how would they implement at the TOS level? It's a simple
I had to explain the first part to explain this. This is part of the problem.
I don't get...
You
I
don't
know
want to
about the
hear my
C words.
explanation. No,
Listen,
you don't want to hear my explanation. You just want to railroad me.
I'm
Okay,
an
this is
expert on
part of the
slurs.
problem.
I'm an expert on slurs already. You don't need to inform me on them. I know about all of them,
I'm
okay?
sorry, dude. I have to rewind. I wasn't listening after that point, dude. Oh my god. Oh my god, man. Holy shit, dude. I'm crying so bad, dude. Holy shit. Oh my god. Holy fuck, man. Ugh. Oh god. Oh lord.
Why do you do...
Oh.
In order to explain that, I have to go through the first part.
I'm not interested in your lecture, you nerd. I just want you to explain to me. Just give me an overview of
Why
how
do you do this toxic masculine type of shit every day?
Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. I just want you to explain to me, okay? Very simple, okay? How would Twitch calculate this slur fucking harm index you're worried about, and how would they implement it at the TOS level? It's a simple
I
question.
had to explain the first part to explain this. This is part of the problem.
You
don't
know
want
about
to
the
hear my
C words.
explanation.
Jesus Christ.
No,
Listen
you
up.
don't want to hear my explanation. You just want to railroad me.
I'm
Okay,
an
this is
expert on
part of the
slurs.
problem.
I'm an expert on slurs already. You don't need to inform me on them. I know about all of them, okay? All I need you to do is explain me how Twitch would implement this at the TOS level.
I can't do without explaining the first part. Okay, this is a very
Go on, then.
nuanced conversation, but you want me to remove all the nuance of the conversation. This is part of the problem.
Go on, Professor Nerd. Go on, off you go.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Oh my
Go on.
god.
Generally,
Oh.
Generally, when people are using things like the C word, people of color, okay, they're using it against oppressors in society, okay? Now, in order to judge this properly, I would argue a simple thing. Do you think, okay, because we have to sort out a framework for this. So let's say I call myself the R-slur, considering I am disabled and I have autism.
That much
Do
is
you
obvious, but
believe...
continue.
Do you know, I feel like the good faith has been taken out of this conversation by now if you're just going to sit there and like actually weaponize that type of stuff against me.
You said, you started all of this when you came for me on Twitter.
Wait, you believe accusing someone of white fragility, accusing someone of being autistic are the same things?
You said yourself that you're autistic.
Yes, but you're weaponizing it against me.
Anyway, come on, go on.
Okay. Do you think
Welcome to
that
Chud
me
Nation.
calling myself autistic
yeah.
and someone calling me autistic should be considered the same within Twitch TOS?
No, yeah, sure. If you insult someone on the basis
Sorry,
of
I had to
autistic,
step out
that's
of the
bad.
room.
I don't think you should do that.
Okay, and so we agree to that point. So do you think... So how can you agree with the term that someone calling someone else...
We need to run
the
that one
C-slur
back too? Nah, we're
Okay.
good. But yeah, the
is the
lights
same,
something happened.
should be considered equal within Twitch TOS as someone calling
Come
a person
on,
of color
second
the
black
N-word.
guy.
Or saying the N-word in general.
Sure.
How are these two things? Obviously, there is a different power dynamic at play here. And power dynamics is how Twitch should base their TOS on.
Okay, so here's my thing, right? I agree with you that the...
So I say the N-word in China. I am black. I have no power. They have all the power. Or sorry, I say the C slur in China. I think I said the N-word. Not the C word. The C word in China. All right, I'm black in China. No power. They have all the power. We good? Good. All right, I gotta say it. Boom. Easy. Clap. Racism achieved. I guess non-racism achieved.
C word and the M word are different, okay? I told you. I'm an expert on slurs. I don't need the lectures, right? The point I'm trying to get across to you is the system that you're suggesting would be very complicated and very bureaucracy heavy. That I don't think it's... Okay.
Can anyone be racist on a transoceanic cruise? In international waters, no rules apply. You know what that means? Let slurs fly. Holy shit, dude. International waters is fair game, boys. I don't know. This shit's just fucking stupid, dude. This shit is what happens when academia agrees with the certain ideas about like racism, and then you take it way too fucking far. Academia was like, yeah, systemic racism is a pretty interesting concept, and people are like, yeah, that's the only thing that racism is. And they're like, wait, what? No, this is a separate thing. They're like, nah, homie, no. It's the only thing that exists is systemic racism. That's it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Another problem with bureaucracy. Do you work for Twitch?
Huh? No, of course not.
Right. So my point is that your bureaucracy-heavy idea of how we resolve this TOS issue, I'm not sure if you could implement that at the Twitch side. Okay. So, my point is, you are suggesting that they make this change to their TOS where they do this slur index of what is and isn't harmful.
Ballistic, I don't know what you're on about.
Is that not only is it very difficult and complicated to actually figure that out and would require linguistics, history people, all of these different types of people to analyze this, right? To come up with a scale with which we figure out which ones are allowed and which one aren't. My point is the TOS as it stands, where it has a blanket, ban on any like slur based on protected characteristic, okay, without exception, is a much more straightforward, simple way to do it. And you can make different decisions in the moderation based on the context of the words as they're used. I think that's a much simpler, straightforward way to deal with this. I agree it's not enforced consistently. I agree with you there. Twitch needs to do a better job of that. However, I don't agree with this idea that Hassan is not morally obligated to follow the rules or something like that, just because they're not being enforced equally elsewhere. I think Hassan should have known what the rules are. He should have followed them. He didn't. He got banned. Cry me a fucking river.
No. Okay. It just seems like you're enjoying Hassan getting banned just a little bit too much, though. Okay.
I mean, you replied to one of my tweets. I don't like people getting banned from big tech platforms. I've defended Stephen Crowder in the past when he got banned. I've also criticized Stephen Crowder when he got banned when he broke TOS. I disagree with the TOS as it stands. I think that it's way too restrictive when it comes to slurs. I think we should be able to.
There's people saying that it came back from Shakespearean time, talking about certain immigrants that were perceived as like white trash. Well, not white. Sorry. They were perceived as other, like, just not, like, what is it, like, swarthy type beat? Like, less thans. There's etymology there. There's people that say that it came from whip cracker later. Like, people would crack the whip. And then later used for, like, Irish and people and shit like that who were not seen as very white, the no blacks, no dogs, no Irish type beat. Feel like that.
Slurs in contexts other than aggressively insulting or attacking someone or something like that. Do you know what I prefer in all honesty? Okay. However, like,
what is this?
I still have to. I prefer the answer. I prefer the hypothetical. Okay, where you go to China and you sellotape your eyes.
Oh, Jesus, we're not doing this.
You get your phone out, you start playing this in your pocket.
No. I think this one is too close to this time. I don't want to play this on stream. I'm going to veto that with my powers as a streamer. I think that one's too far, okay? I want to just, all right. That TOS wise, okay? That is an in-private joke, all right? It's an in-private joke, okay? But it's not even really a joke, if we're being honest. It's a pretty serious, like, hypothetical. Like, if we're being candid. They say that, like, that's not a problem to do. Their argument leads to the conclusion, I can go to China and do some shit that, like, is listed in that clip. Some heinous-ass fucking shit. And it's not racist because Because power, I guess. Cringe.
Follow the rules regardless of what's going on elsewhere. So
it's not even like really a joke. It is a joke, but it's a joke that gets at a point, right? It's like if I make a joke about how, like, I don't know, there's like men that really like LARPing milsim shit and want to like act like they're tactical and in the military, right? Like it's a joke about something real.
To follow the rules, despite the fact he's got this juicy contract. And he's the biggest
the accent
on the platform.
probably would be where it's at.
The point is that Twitch doesn't enforce their rules consistently.
Okay.
And it is starting to feel, and I think this is generally true, I think that recently Twitch has really started to heavily enforce their TOS more on leftist and liberal-leaning Twitch streamers. That includes Destiny, right? So when Destiny was departnered from Twitch over the Kanusha riot stuff that he said, and yet you have had right-leaning political Twitch streamers who've said way worse, who are partners, who haven't been departnered.
Jesus,
This is the type of problem. This is actually the grievance that not only leftists have, but liberals have as well. And so this is the crux of the problem, and this is what I think you're not understanding, is why people are upset.
RNG.
Okay? This is... Yeah, just...
Okay, I mean, I get why people might be upset. I agree that, like, getting banned... I mean, I know people that have been banned in chat for saying the C word, just asking, oh, is it this word? Like, I think that for whatever reason... Twitch's automatic algorithm or something like that, is acting in kind of weird ways.
Certainly,
I don't quite understand the mechanics behind it in terms of how it's working. And I also agree.
Who is he talking to? Chud. So I am watching Chudlogic debate somebody called pragmatic leftist DemSoc011. This person I have had a previous run-in with. They are the definition of a stan. All right, they just will refuse to accept any kind of argument that doesn't consist of the streamer that they watch is perfect and amazing. So they're horrible at this, but it is what it is.
Do a better job of enforcing their rules more consistently.
You just misread
the
me.
R word should be banned, for example.
Sure, I agree with that.
I don't see why that should be allowed. Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that there are rules that exist that Hassan should be following. He hasn't followed them, and he's been banned. I don't think whether other people are following the rules or not is relevant as to whether you need to follow the rules.
It sort of is,
I will
right?
take my licks.
Not really. Can I say the N-word then if other people are breaking the rules, breaking worse rules, putting child porn up?
Okay.
If someone's putting child porn up, can I say the N-word because it's not quite as bad, is it?
Well, you see, the N-word is just as bad as child porn.
Are so difficult for me. One is getting these leftists to stop holding me responsible for the evils in the world. The second one is getting your mom off of my fucking dick. Yuya.
You didn't even type wooya.
Reasons why you shouldn't do it, not just one, and you keep on acting like I've given one reason why you shouldn't do it.
Okay, but the thing is, what you're saying is other people are breaking the rules, okay, and
Sure.
like the N-word is a really bad word to say, okay. I think that uploading child pornography to Twitch is really bad. If someone else is uploading
that's also illegal.
Okay, let's use another example then. Let's say that someone uploads a video onto Twitch and it's of them murdering a minority, okay? If that happened, would I be able to say the N-word because it's not as bad, as racist as that?
Well, no, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. But you think it is.
Well, no, it seems like the point you're trying to make is that there's worse, more egregious breaches of terms of service happening. Yep. Therefore, it doesn't matter if I break a rule that isn't quite as bad as that or isn't as bad as that.
That's what they're
but
making.
Using the N-word is more an egregious terms of service.
It's not an argument because Chud can give you a more egregious thing than saying the N-word. I don't know. That's so crazy. Like if you wanted to make this argument, you wouldn't compare it and say because other breaches are happening, it's whatever. You would just say you would have to make the argument for why, white racism or racism against white people, is not in your eyes substantial enough to meet the merit of, I guess, racist shit. It just doesn't meet the logic of the TOS. It's just, I don't know. This person's fighting uphill.
Service breaking and then like saying the C slur.
I know, but I'm not comparing.
We've already agreed on that point.
I'm not comparing it to that though. I'm not comparing it to that. I'm saying the N word, but there's someone else somewhere else that is doing a live stream where they're engaging in a racist a physical attack against a black person. So that's happening over there. That's a breach of TOS. Okay, it's worse than saying the N word, obviously. So does that mean I'm now allowed to say the N word, or I'm not morally obligated to follow the rules? You know, whatever you want to put it.
No, because you would have two moral obligations, right? You wouldn't just have one.
Okay, well,
this is.
What do you mean?
The first moral obligation. Okay. You're saying okay. So your argument is that the moral obligation is to obey TOS. I'm arguing.
If you want to say on the platform,
there is a moral obligation.
No, wait. Sorry. Wait. I don't think it's about a moral obligation at all. Like, do what you want. If you don't want to follow TOS, that's up to you. I think that streamers should follow TOS if they want to remain on the platform, and if they're banned unfairly, we can talk about that. But if they break the rules and get banned, I don't think they have a right to complain about getting banned. I don't think it's about a moral obligation. It's just a sense of self-preservation or something like that. And if you break the rules, I don't really give a shit if you want to complain about it. It's like, you should have followed the rules.
Okay, let me try and structure my argument.
True.
So, when it comes to TOS, right? My argument of, well, sure, Hassan broke the rules, but Twitch doesn't always strictly enforce the TOS, and sometimes it seems to be there's an unevenness when it comes to right-leaning content creators and left-leaning content creators. And your response with, well, does that mean that it should be okay for me to say the N-word or show pictures of someone being murdered on Twitch? Well, no, because there's like two things there. Not only should you not say the N-word because it's TOS on Twitch, but you shouldn't say it because of the amount of harm caused by calling.
Great. So we found a way to take the longest route ever to now getting to justify why there is no harm to making fun of white people based on their race. That's what it was always going to come down to. Is like, why is that like not a racial a slur, or why is that not like racist or anything like that, right? Like, took the world's longest route to get
people
here.
Of color, or by white people saying the N-word in general. And this is my point. So I don't believe these two things add up, because my argument isn't simply that you shouldn't say the N-word because it's TOS. My argument is that you shouldn't say the N-word because it causes a lot of harm to people of color. And this is sort of my problem here.
Yeah, they did. So
I think we're not agreeing here. I think it's very difficult.
I think we're getting muddled up because I think you presume that I thought there was some sort of like moral obligation to follow the TOS. Oh. I don't believe that. I think that like I said this before, but it's like it's maybe civil disobedience. Maybe you could argue Hassan was engaging in civil disobedience in terms of he didn't think the rules were legit, and he was kind of going against it for that reason.
Even if he did believe, like, let's assume Chud, what Chud is saying is accurate of the other individual, and that the other individual believed that Chud's position was that we morally ought to follow the TOS. What the fuck does that have to do with white fragility? Chud would be saying that we have to follow the TOS, and whether they're white or not, we have to follow the TOS. What the fuck does that have to do with white fragility?
But in my
I also think there was a disagreement on whether it was a slur or not. And even Twitch was having those disagreements. It wasn't only Hassan. Twitch internally, it seems, was having those disagreements.
I mean, from what I understand, based on the TOS as I've read it, I mean, obviously, it doesn't say specifically that would be like considered a slur specifically, but the way that the TOS is worded, I can bring it up, but it seems to suggest to me that if you insult or disparage someone on the basis of a protected characteristic, including race, there's no exception for that. That is a breach of TOS if you do it in a hateful or disparaging way, which is what Hassan did. So, regardless of not enforcing it elsewhere, I feel like kind of. Not only is it quite clear in the TOS, but it seemed like Hassan was almost goading Twitch to ban him for this, to create some sort of political point or something.
I mean, there may have been behavior where his was, but I definitely didn't see any of that. And I watched the past 2 streams because, you know, I watch him generally.
Sure. I mean, there was one.
Definitely didn't see that.
There was one moment. Well, what I mean by goading, I don't mean
about the debate.
I don't mean not the debate. I don't mean he was literally there going, you know, ban me, ban me. But there was a point at which, like, clearly there was some heat around the C word that was building. I think that, like,
was that in the response to the Reddit post?
Yes, correct.
Okay, that one. Okay, we're talking about the response to the Reddit post. I don't know. I mean, I feel that my arguments have been laid out here.
Why? It's not the same.
You know, I'm going to point this out because I think it's important that I point this out. When I use the term white fragility, I don't mean it as an insult. Okay, when I point to the white fragility, I mean something that I see happening within certain behavior. For example, you can argue 2 points. You can argue, someone could be arguing that someone is overly emotional as an insult, and someone could be arguing that someone's overly emotional based on behavioral characteristics that they're seeing displayed from that person.
Dude,
and I feel that you
give up.
took my white fragility as an insult rather than a specific behavior, because when most people use the term now, it is true, they don't use it based on Robin DiAngelo's theory. They use it as a general insult, but I wasn't. I was using it based on a certain behavior that I was seeing, which seemed, at least from the videos, okay? Haven't watched the stream, but from the 3 videos that I saw, seemed to be an overly defensiveness when it came to the C slur.
Right. Well, you've totally, like, I don't really care about, like, the C slur or getting called the C slur, or I don't care about the idea of white people getting called the C slur. I literally
then
don't give
apologize. I'm willing to retract that then, okay? Willing to retract that.
Yeah, you know, my issue isn't anything to do with that, okay? Like, the
only context I have is the YouTube videos.
Okay. I mean, I'm surprised.
Wait, if you watch the YouTube videos, he makes it clear. The context isn't the YouTube videos. The context is the thumbnails.
You've come away with, but we, you know,
come on.
Here's my position, right?
The thing
is with white fragility, to me, what it suggests is that white people have a level of discomfort that they experience when topics of, like, race and racism come up. Like, so they find it difficult to engage with ideas around, like, the fact that black people are negatively affected by racism and systemic racism and stuff like that. Whereas it seems like you're using it in a way in terms of, like, well, your perception was, oh, Chud is bothered about people being called the C word and he's upset about something. So because he's upset, that's displaying fragility. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem to me. I mean, I'm not an expert on Robin DiAngelo and white fragility.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, go on. What do you want to say?
Okay, well, the main idea is every time that, like, someone's whiteness is mentioned, whether it's like, for example, this is not you, but for example, someone's saying, well, I believe the police are not good and they're racist, and a black person will go, well, that's because you're white, and they're more likely to be nicer, or they're more likely to believe a white person. Then that person will get upset and goes,
what is your name? What the fuck is that name? I'm gonna call you Vian. All right, Vian. The reason why a lot of people bring up that the C word isn't really comparable to the N word, and that everybody on, like, the side who says maybe we shouldn't make fun of white people or be racist to white people, or saying more specifically the people who say you can't be racist to white people, those people, the reason why they bring up a comparison with the N-word is to try and be disingenuous, is to make a rhetorical appeal to the intuitive idea that you have that it's common sense that the C word isn't as bad as the N-word. That's it. That's what they're trying to appeal to. And that from there, like, therefore it can't be racist to, like, use the C word or make fun of white people.
hey, you can't use my, like, whiteness against me. That's generally what we mean when we talk about, like, white fragility, is an overly defensive response every time someone's whiteness is brought up.
That sucks,
in regards to, like, those types of conversations. And my perception at that point was that the C slur, that the reason you were upset or opposed to the C slur based on the 3 videos that you published was like based on like a similar thing, that you're upset because whiteness was being invoked as a like pejorative.
Yeah, I think that any slur can be acceptable in certain contexts, right?
True.
I mean, obviously we might disagree about whether the C slur is a slur or not, but I myself have been making jokes on Twitter about like this word and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of funny. People have been trying to insult me along those lines, and I literally don't give a shit. Like, you'd have to get up early in the morning to truly like, insult me by calling me that sort of thing, right? My issue
is because there's no way those people can like oppress you with that word, probably, right? Like, it's going to be fairly difficult for them to like.
Yeah, I recognize that in society, obviously like my class position is one thing, but like
your class is shit. Like, I'm working class, so I know what you mean.
Yeah. But I'm like a white cis heterosexual dude. So I benefit. Sure. I would accept like I benefit from a degree of privilege in society, right? And that's fine.
I see. That makes sense.
It's not about that. My issue, if people had just sort of said, you know what, calling people the C word, even if they don't think it's racist, right? They got their definition.
I agree with the slur. Right? Just to be clear,
okay.
I think it's a slur.
Okay, but if they just come out and said, okay, calling white people the C word, it's a shitty thing to do. I'm trying to insult them, I'm trying to upset them, and it's a shitty thing to do. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. Fair enough. Own you being a dickhead. The problem is these constant justifications that people make to wriggle their way into engaging in behavior, which I think is shitty, and act like that's some moral good. Like, I don't think there's any good to come out of calling like a white person the C word. It could be contextualized if it's like a black person saying it to a white person. Fair enough. Like, I get it, right? But I don't think that it kind of justifies it or means it's a good thing. And the other thing I'd note is a lot of this discourse is white people calling other white people the C word. Most of the people I've spoken to or engaged with about this, in terms of online and stuff, it seems to be a lot of white people. So I don't know. It just seems like this argument of, it's people rising against their oppressors or whatever is bullshit.
Okay. So, number one, I don't call other white people the C word. I don't think it's useful for me. In my position, it doesn't really make any sense. It's a bit weird. However, I do feel, for example, it's a lot of the time it's very contextualized, right? So if a white person beats up a black person, I would say the black person is probably then justified because there's like a lot of socio-political context that you could use there. I agree with you.
Sorry, to be clear, if a white person is beating up a black person, I take it further than that. They don't just have to call them the C word. They can defend themselves, potentially using lethal forces they have to, right? So, of course, like in those situations, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to, if a police officer has got like a boot on the neck of someone and the person with under the boot says, fuck you, bitch, or whatever, I'm not going to be like, well, that's naughty. You shouldn't call them rude words. Like, obviously
also,
not. Do you know what I mean?
When it comes to Hassan, I know Hassan considers himself to be white, but I think within the American political system, and he said this before, the minute people know he's Turkey, he gets treated differently. Like, that is just a thing that happens. It's, for example, I use the same thing of like Destiny and the G word, that whole debate. I use a very similar thing that, sure, he may be seen as white, but Latino and Latino black people from Hispanic countries have had a lot of oppression. And so I would argue that like white people should not call Destiny that word. And I was pretty fairly strong about that.
We can agree on that.
Me. Okay.
But sorry, I just want to finalize my point, right? Yeah. So, the thing is, it's very easy to sit in the background and have a moral position on something. Like, I think that like,
what was that? What was the... I don't understand what that point... The first part of that point was supposed to be.
Like, the color of your skin or whatever it is, wrong, even in that situation. But I'm not going to like super hardcore police the person on the floor. Like, you shouldn't be saying that. I'm going to be like, hey, get your fucking boot off his neck. That's fucked up. Yeah.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily like about that aspect of it. It's for me about the broader conversation and some of the justifications.
Yeah, I wasn't very vocal about it. Yeah.
To suggest that like, this behavior is in some way permissible, not contextualized, but permissible because of the way that power structures in society work. And I just don't think that's right. But yeah.
So is your opposition, just to be clear, is that on the universal application that people are using the C slur on it, and you don't think that that's unethical, or is your argument that any slur that is about a certain character characteristic is unethical.
Okay, so I've got like layers to my position really, but without going into all the gory details, my most fundamental position is this, okay? If you have got some trait or some aspect of yourself that you cannot possibly change today, like the tone of your skin, your ethnicity, your height even, or something like that, I think it's wrong to kind of vitriolically attack someone for one of those traits, right? So, as a term of endearment, it's fine. As a joke even, it's fine, whatever. But if you specifically are attacking or insulting someone and you're using a word that speaks to one of those characteristics, I think that's wrong because, number one, I don't think the person has got any control. They've got no control over that thing, so they can't change it even if they wanted to. And number two, you're linking that trait to some sort of bad behavior, and I think that can lead to people essentializing others based on those characteristics. That's why I'm against it.
Okay. So, let me see how to approach this. Okay. So, when someone calls me the C slur, and let's say they call me it in a really vitriolic way, it's with all the caveats that you included. I don't believe that's unethical, and the reason I don't is because there is no power behind it. And when I mean power, I mean there is no ability, I think, for it to be overly stigmatizing to me, for it to be overly oppressive to me. My opposition to the certain use of slurs, again, is how much harm do they cause. If you call someone the N-word, well, there's a lot of bad things that can result from that. You are stigmatizing a group of people who are already fairly down on the economic ladder and on the social ladder. It can be utilized by racists. It can end up invoking, if enough people do it and it spreads through society, a bit like a meme, right? It can end up overtaking that culture. That's
the same thing has occurred with white people. Like being able to be like say certain things about, like in broad daylight. I'm not on Twitch anymore. Half of the jokes, so like I'm not sure if this was the same reason why I made the white jokes, because of all of the things that I could say about white people that I can't say about non-white people. I do the same thing for gender, right? I'll say a lot of things about men that I can't say about women to show the hypocrisy, and vice versa, right? Like, and I also think there's a hypocrisy between what we say about, like, for instance, races of people that we can't say about genders of people, right? I think there's some hypocrisy there, right? And that's usually what I'm poking fun at. I think this, what this person's referring to, I mean, it's just, like, why wouldn't we say it's just the hypocrisy, right, of what we're... Maybe it's because hypocrisy is like they're afraid of that word. I don't know.
Society, and we can end up in a position where we are actually seeing these people as less than humans. I don't think that can exist for one.
Like an environment in which we make arguments, or at least we did make arguments a lot, even on Twitch, about like you got to look at the state of affairs. We have people donating tens of thousands of dollars to organizations that say that white people need to do these things because they like are beneficiaries of these certain of the privileges of the past, and therefore they need to give all of their money to this random black organization in order to make good on their past wrongs and shit like that. Do you not think that like anti-white sentiment and shit like that can go to a place where it's gone too far, and that we have evidence of that? I think that's evidence of that. I think evidence of that is also like the weird displays where like white people will like get on their knees and say I'm sorry to like random black people, or like do that shit. That shit, like, what? I think these are good examples of shit going too far in the direction of like white people feeling bad or feeling like they are like less than for just being born white. Which is really fucking weird. Okay.
White people in the current system.
Okay.
There is no way for that to exist, I think, because the majority of people in the United States and the UK, Australia, we're white. And so how can that happen would be my problem.
Well, my perception is things can be different levels of severity, right? So for example, okay, if someone said to me, like, I would rather someone cut off my little finger than cut off my entire arm, but I'd still rather they not cut off my little finger at all and just leave me alone, right? So by what I'm trying to say here is I agree with you that calling someone the C word doesn't invoke the same sort of systemic power and backing and all this other stuff, all this history, that calling someone the N word would in similar circumstances, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that I think that, like, calling someone the C word is, like, super harmful. It's just that for the reasons that I've mentioned, that number one, this person has got no control over their race. It's something that's socially assigned to them.
Hey, I'm going to run a 60-second ad, okay? If you want to dodge this ad, sub to me now, all right? Sub to me now. All right, I'm going to run a 60-second ad. Sub to me with your Twitch Prime or you beg for a gifted sub, all right? Bing chilling! Here comes the ad.
Can't be like, oh, I'm not white anymore, I'm going to change my skin color, whatever. You know, that is the first issue. And I think you can make people feel bad just for having a certain trait or a certain something like that. And I don't think that's on. And secondly, it's the fact that whilst I agree that it's not as bad as the N-word thing and it's not dehumanizing, etc., I think you are still trying to invoke an essentialist analysis of someone or suggesting some bad behavior they're exhibiting is in some way linked to that trait. And, you know, I'm just fundamentally against the idea that we should essentialize people in any way because of, say, the color of their skin.
Okay. I responded to these criticisms to Koyo-san, and I think I'm going to respond to it the same way. This is probably a bit of a hot take on my part. My opposition
Anybody got a
to
link to
slurs
that?
is, again, it's not based on essentialization. It's not based on characteristics of something that they cannot control. It's based on a bunch of sociological consequences that can come from using those slurs. And I think this is where we cannot disagree, because your opposition to slurs and my opposition to slurs come from completely different, or not your opposition, but your problem with using certain slurs comes from completely different oppositions, like the opposition.
I think it depends on the hypocrisy whether or not it's a powerful argument.
Agree on, unfortunately. I don't think you're a bad person. I just think it's something that we can't agree on, like the basic opposition. You know, and I think
are you saying you think it's acceptable to use slurs in some circumstances? Then is that right? Like, not just, I mean, in vitriolic ways, not just in like a joke or something. Do you think it's acceptable to insult people vitriolically and viciously, to attempt to insult or denigrate them with slurs in some circumstances?
Sure, absolutely. For example, I believe that the K word, I don't know if that's allowed on Twitch or not, you know, the one talking about white women who complain to the manager.
Oh, I thought they meant the
I
other
think that's
K word.
Completely ethical if they're displaying some type of overly self-righteous, annoying type of behavior in society. I think that's completely okay. So again, like, this is where we disagree. I'm disagree. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective is that, like, I mean, if someone does it, like, I think ideally
some people do call people that word with vitriol. You know, the word about the white woman
and my position is like, yeah, people are going to, you know, I'm not perfect. You know, I'll say things that go against maybe what I think sometimes, maybe out of anger or frustration. But I don't think that it's like morally justifiable or good. I'm interested to understand what good is coming out of calling a woman that.
What good is coming out of calling a woman that? Well, I think it disincentivizes. It should, if enough of society calls them that and we reject that type of behavior, it incentivizes those people in society to not act like that anymore. In the same way that I would argue that I think the C slur makes probably more people aware of the different power dynamics of racism than not using it at all. You know, all these struggles that people of color go through. You know, again, a lot of the things we do in society, the behaviors we do, how we call people, the ways that we condemn things, these all have an effect of either incentivizing
SV Exxon, sorry, I saw your shit 3 minutes ago. You didn't put in 100 bits, so it didn't TTS, but there is still perhaps a next level down thought experiment from specific white slurring here. Some commenters on stream have touched on it a little, so there could be more content possible, and it's not satirical exemptions. My personal case, I don't know what the fuck that is, or C, nor namely the question of freedom of slurring and derogation. Is that a word at all? Why would we insult people at all? Accept it could be eliminated. Why shouldn't it be eliminated? I don't think insulting people should be eliminated. Taryn, thank you for the primer.
Certain behaviors in society, or de-incentivizing those behaviors in society.
Okay. I just want to read something to you. I'm just like to hear your thoughts on this. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is from Aldous Huxley. I don't know the full context of this or where it's from, but
I know who he is.
Okay. So the surest way to work up a crusade in favor of some good cause is to promise people they will have the chance of maltreating someone, to be able to destroy with good conscience, to be able to behave badly and call your bad behavior righteous indignation. This is the height of psychological luxury, the most delicious of moral treats. So my position on this, based off of that, is that I think what's happening here is you're attempting to justify treating someone badly and pointing to some proposed moral good. My position on that is I completely disagree with that. I think that actually if we want to change people's behavior and we want to do that on a personal level, we approach with kindness rather than with, attacking and stuff like that. Okay. If that's your intent, if you want to, change someone's perception or change someone's perspective, etc.
Good quote. I think so. I liked it when I heard it.
And yeah, I don't think that it's a good idea to push this concept that we can be mean to people, we can treat them badly, and somehow some moral good come out of it. Because I don't agree that there is like a moral good or a good thing coming out of it. And I think that the things that you think are being achieved by doing this, if we really got into the nitty gritty, there's probably other things that would change that behavior or other things that would influence that, other than us just calling them this rude word.
Okay. So, I guess the disagreement I have here, after what you've said, is I think there have been certain times in history where mistreating people has led to people changing their behavior or going underground.
Stop being white would get caught up in the weeds. The secure thing of this is there was a pretty big violent protest in the late 60s with the American Nazi Party. I think things were thrown at them. It was a pretty violent instance. And after that happened, the American Nazi Party really went underground. That amount of large mob of people mistreating them took them underground, and the American Nazi Party has never really risen to the heights that it had like back in the late 60s. So I think there are definitely arguments for mistreating people and that leading to better outcomes in society. And of course, I mean, as a leftist, of course I believe that there are certain power institutions or people who are employed by powerful institutions where mistreating them... He never said mistreating them is bad. He's saying mistreating them in regards to, like, just insulting them when there are better methods to be able to do it is better. And we should approach it in a direction of kindness. And also, I'm pretty sure that he wasn't talking about, like, people that want to kill other people. You could say that there are special rules, and these special rules absolutely were at play and previously in his argumentation in regards to self-defense. So, like, he could simply say that there are special rules when it comes to people that want to kill other people. I don't know.
Can definitely lead them.
This is not the greatest argument.
Act differently. People hate this idea, and I know it's an idea I've gotten flack for before in my debate with Ahrelevant, but I do believe, for different reasons, but I do believe that when the Black Lives Matter protest happened and there were a bunch of protesters who did mistreat the police, I happen to feel that that is really what put a fire in the asses of a lot of politicians to ban things like chokeholds and that, because they knew without doing that, the black community and the police were never going to see eye to eye, that something had to happen. So I think the idea that mistreating people it generally doesn't lead to good outcomes. I think there have been certain instances in society that has proven that idea wrong. Now, of course, this has to be taken responsibly, and I can understand your concerns about this going poorly, because I definitely think it's gone poorly before. I mean, there have been several violent revolutions where, of course, this has not gone well.
Maggie, that's where
we have to do this in moderation.
That's the argument.
If you were to ask me, should we, for example, an extreme idea, of course, we're talking Minecraft here, but an extreme idea would be, well, in that case, should we kill every white person who's racist? I'm like, well, no, that would be going over the top. That would probably lead to worse outcomes. But I wouldn't accept that all mistreatment of a person based on bad behaviors that they're doing leads to those negative outcomes.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm not a historian. Okay, I can't. You know, there's people in chat that are disagreeing with your perspective on that, but I don't know either way. Okay. So what I would say is this: like, let's say we do have a group of Nazis that are marching through. Okay, I wouldn't say that it would be calling them like bad words or something like that would like stop them. So, you know, that's more what I was kind of talking about. Now you're talking about mistreating them. Like, if someone is marching in your community and you don't want them marching in your community, you know, I think it's acceptable to take physical action, and I think that could potentially feasibly be a form of self-defense. So, you know, if you've got a Jewish community and Nazis want to like march through it, and you don't want them to march through it, and you're scared and concerned, I think that assembling people to push back against that and do a counter-protest and then to engage in like self-defensive violence against that is totally fine. But that's not geeing up like supporting a good cause by saying, yeah, we're going to go and beat the shit out of the Nazis, let's go. You're saying we're going to defend this community from people that are coming into it from outside that we feel are going to do it harm. So I don't think that's quite the flavour of what I was talking about.
But I guess there were, I bet there were probably a few people who definitely had in their minds, we're going to go and bash up Nazis, let's go. There's always a small part of that. I mean...
Sure, and I think that's irresponsible. I mean, that's inevitable, but I don't think you should, like, promote that. And in fact, my understanding, I'm not an expert on Antifa, but I think in certain, like, Antifa aspects, some people do get frustrated with the people that just want to go and bash Nazi heads. You know, they want people that are going to be supportive and be defensive. They don't want people that are just there to cause a ruckus and fight. So even within Antifa, I think that, like, there's a desire to make it so there's not all these people coming that just want to fight and want to scrap. They do want to engage in a more defensive form of community defense. I'm not a massive fan of Antifa, but you know, I think that's a thing there. But yeah, I mean, I guess that,
what does he not like about Antifa?
You're talking about like
curiosity,
organized Nazis, right? Now, I don't think that's really comparable necessarily quite the right way. But what I would say is this: so let's say there's a woman, okay. Yep. And, you know, she calls the police on like a black person or whatever, right? Yep. That's where this came from. So originally they were called a Karen, etc., etc. That comes from like the manager meme, okay?
Are you allowed to say that on Twitch?
It should be okay. As a self, okay. I think I try and be careful with it. It should be okay. However, I think that now, and this happens quite often with these sorts of things, is now if you just have like an angry white woman, or even an angry any angry woman, people will call them.
Any angry woman, you got to get yourself an angry woman. Mad, big mad.
A Karen, a K word, right? And like, to me, I look at that and I go, well, look how quickly that's changed from having a very specific usage to describe a certain kind of behavior that's specific to something which we think is harmful, to just broadly going, oh, angry woman, even if she's justifiably angry, oh, she's just being a K word. Right? And, you know, to me, that just demonstrates the problem that we've got with this, that I think that when you come up with words or new concepts and stuff to insult people like that, it just gets out of hand very quickly. And before you know it, people that share the same attributes as the person you were trying to call out the behavior of before, all of a sudden, you're using it on them. And also, everyone's getting caught in the crossfire of that. And also, people that are called Karen are getting caught in the crossfire of that. I'm sure there's some lovely Karens out there. And it's just sad that their name has been associated with this meme where they might not even deserve it. Now, is it as big a deal as someone calling someone the N-word? Absolutely not. But I just don't think it's something that's worth promoting. And
no, it's not about being angry. It's about being a woman. It's in regards to being a Karen. That's what the issue with the, you know, being called a Karen is, that there's it seems to be primarily applied to women, and doing pretty reasonable shit. So the argument would just be, you could call them like a disruptive asshole, or come up with a word for a disruptive asshole that's like unisex.
I don't think it leads to these positive outcomes that you think it does.
Is Karen the K word now?
That's it.
Getting there.
Okay. So I will go from back to front. So on the idea that are there Karens being caught in the crossfire? Absolutely, and I think that terrible.
Right. I think this is enough. Unless I'm gonna start skipping.
Bad they do, and then we sort of have like the discussion.
I feel like this auxiliary discussion is not getting very many places I want it.
We're having now about it.
Okay.
Again, so the other point is on the basis that these people cannot control them. That's sort of not my opposition to the use of slurs. It's not based on that. I think it's like my opposition to slurs is of course based on a lot of the stuff that I've already outlined. Okay,
so I mean, it strikes me then that what you're concerned about with your kind of political project is you just want to get people that already agree with you to agree with you more.
Okay, so I think, elaborate on this. We will use the United States because I think that's the thing that most of your chat, the country that most of your chat lives in.
Yeah, sure.
So I am particularly passionate of uniting like moderate Republicans, centrists, liberals, social democrats, leftists, so on. I think part of the problem is that changing someone's mind is a very long project, and a lot of the time it seems, and we've noticed this now, I mean, if you look at the 2016 elections, we thought that we had changed a lot of people's minds on racism, sexism, and we hadn't. And this had been a project we started in the 70s, 60s, 80s. And that just hasn't happened. So I'm very doomer about like this idea of being able to change the large swathes of groups.
In what regard have we not changed opinions about sexism and shit? Like, what barometers are we using?
Minds to like a more, I guess, egalitarian position.
Does this person know that like women are like getting degrees at higher rates than men? Men are actively dropping out of school disproportionately to help the finances of the household disproportionately compared to women? That like men are ruining their lifelong career just like by and large disproportionately in comparison to women? I don't know that like women are being accepted into higher paying positions more often. I don't understand what this person's barometer is for sexism not changing.
Okay, why do you think people are racist?
I think it's based on a bunch of sociological and cultural factors.
Okay.
Do you want me to elaborate?
No. I think we probably. Well, I just wanted to eliminate the idea that people choose to be racist. I don't think anyone makes a conscious choice.
I disagree with that.
That's good. Okay.
But I think if you live in certain communities, I think it's very difficult to get out of that idea because, you know, communities sort of have their own insular environments a lot of the time. You know, and smaller the community, like people hate because I think I sound classes, but I think places like rural towns, you know, places like this. I grew up in a rural town for a little bit. And so I know the type of insular communities that can be developed in those areas.
Sure. Okay. So, basically the point I'm trying to get across to you is like, I think that we believe that the way that we solve these issues is we go out there and we change people's minds. Now, on an interpersonal level, I think you can connect with someone, and I think that you can help them to see the light or change their mind or something like that. But much like with like bootstrap sort of mentality, that doesn't apply at like the policy level or the broad level. And I think that, you know, and this is obviously a future project over generations, but in order to fix some of these issues, you've got to fix some of the fundamental issues that exist with society, like wealth disparity, education. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I
I completely agree with like I agree with that, you know. So I guess it was just a misunderstanding on that bit. On the subject, and then you like referred back to the like the C word subject.
Yeah, sure. Go on.
Yeah, I think like this is where we disagree. So when it comes to people online, of course, I think there are terminally online people who believe that online is the sole sphere of where you like change minds and political activism. And why I think it's 50-50. I think 50% IRL and 50% online. I would have said no to this probably 6 years ago, but seeing the way that like when you ask people and when you see these studies about how much did online content impact the way you vote, among all age groups, it's increasing. It's increasing how much more people are looking at stuff online to predict how they vote. Like more people get their news online now. More people watch political press conferences online. Less people read newspapers, and this is among all age groups. This is not even specifically like even people like in their 50s, like they read more newspapers online now. And they're not reading like the Washington Post; they're reading the Daily Mail. So it does seem to me that there's more of a intake of online material. But I also do think that it's still important to not be online brained and to consider the idea of knocking on doors, having real conversations with people is more important. And so I think what happens, I think there's an over fetishization of IRL activity and there's an over fetishization of like online activity. And I think everyone, people can disagree on this, probably everyone should have a balance of the two. So yeah, but I also agree with you that do I believe that in and of itself calling someone a C word is like the greatest moral thing and people are doing that online? No, of course not. But I guess my contention, I still would have a small contention with that argument, and that would be that I do think in Pacific situations, right? So if like people are just memeing about it, well, people are just memeing about it. But
speaking of the Pacific,
if you're fighting with someone and someone's saying overly racist things and that person of color calls them the C word and people do, and then like people continue calling that person that thing, I think it disincentivizes that behavior. And I think this is where we disagree. I would never argue it's moral in all circumstances. Like I wouldn't argue that using Karen is moral in all circumstances. It can definitely be misapplied, but I wouldn't argue that it's unethical within itself. And this is again the disagreement that we have.
So I just want to rewind a bit back to a point you made earlier. Okay, you said it's important not to be too online brained, and I totally agree with that. So my question to you is: let's say you were engaged in some sort of political action, you were out knocking on doors, okay, and you asked people whose doors you were knocking on, broad spectrum of the public, can you be racist to white people? What do you think they'd say?
They would say yes.
Okay. So my point there.
What is the point?
Well, the point there is these hyper online definitions, which, by the way, the power plus privilege equals racism isn't even a widely accepted overall definition of racism.
Are you talking academically or sociological, or like within society?
I'm talking both. Even academically, this power plus privilege equals racism. My understanding is it's not a widely agreed upon definition of racism. I'm not an expert by any means, but I think there's actually like 4 different types of racism that exist. There's like internalized racism, interpersonal racism, systemic racism, and structural racism, or something like that. So there's like 4 different types of racism, which is right up my street because the more ways you can be racist, all the better for me at the end of the day. But the reality of it is that I believe is the more sociologically and academically accepted definition of racism. But lefties have got it in their heads. This is very much a Terminal 9 thing. That actually the definition is power plus privilege equals racism. Okay, that isn't something that is either accepted by academia, nor is it something that's accepted in society. So why are we doing this? Why are we going along this definition when either academically, my understanding is it isn't widely accepted. So in society, it's not widely accepted. It just seems to be something that people use online to justify shitty behavior against white people.
Okay, so I would fully accept that there is, number one, a disagreement on the definition of racism. I've seen this in real life and I've seen this online quite equally. I think, and this is an unpopular opinion even among the online left. I haven't seen. In fact, a lot of the time, I see a lot of fighting on Twitter, on Discord, about whether prejudice plus power equals racism is the definition, or your definition is the racist definition. There doesn't seem to be. It seems to me, now I could be getting this wrong, and I'm sorry if I am, that you believe there's a widely agreed upon thing with online lefties that agree with the prejudice plus power, but that doesn't seem. Well, I haven't really seen that to be true.
Wait,
okay,
what?
It's mainly like the dumb fuck Twitter leftoids that think this, but yeah, I see it constantly. You can't be racist to white people because power plus privilege equals racism. There's a couple of problems with that. Okay, just within itself, there's a problem because what does power mean? For example, power could be an interpersonal level of power. Like if I've got if I'm a lowly janitor in a building and the CEO of the company happens to be a black person, well, they've got like power over me, okay, because they're the CEO of the company, and also they could have a degree of prejudice towards me. Maybe they hate white people or something like that, right? Now, I would say that like in society, and this is why we look at structural racism or whatever, in society, more broadly, that's not the case. But in that specific interpersonal situation, that black person has got more power over me to exert. So they, in that instance, could be racist. So even within its own definition, it's a problem because it's not clear what power means. But other than that, my understanding, I'm not an expert to be clear, is just that this is not a widely accepted definition because of that and other reasons which are, I don't know the full insight into it, I can explain it out to you now. And that's why people look and operate on the 4 tiers of racism, okay, which is the internalized, interpersonal, systemic, and structural, or societal, something like that. That tends to be the framework with which you view it. And then you're able to say, of course, you can be racist against white people at an interpersonal level. However, in America, for example, there isn't really structural or systemic racism against white people that you can point to, right? So obviously that means that white people aren't experiencing or living the same experience as a black person. But that means then that there's no reason to kind of interpersonally insult someone on the basis of their race, and certainly there's no reason to deny that there's like any potential issues that could come off the back of it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess the first question I have to understand your point that I need to have answered is, do you think there is a difference between prejudice and racism, and if there is, what do you think it is?
I mean, God, honestly, I don't really know. Do you think there is? I don't really think there's like much of a difference that's worth being aware of. I think that
versus prejudice versus racism. Is that what the question is? I mean, racism is just a prejudice based on race, no?
Maybe racism is a specific form of prejudice. Prejudice is maybe more of an overarching thing, and racism falls within that, perhaps. But yeah, I don't know if there's like a meaningful difference that I could point to make it make sense to say, well, that person's being prejudiced because it's against the white person, and that person's being racist because it's against the black person. It just seems like a semantic trick to slip around the idea that someone is engaging in bad behavior.
Yeah, prejudice is just presuppositions or assumptions or attitudes held about something that are aren't they derogatory in nature? I actually don't know what the definition of prejudice is. But the way that I take prejudice is that it's in a derogatory nature, like you have some negative opinion of somebody that's built off of an unjustified ground. A like or dislike, well, I guess it could be a like, huh? For another or any other specific without good reason. So just an opinion without good reason.
Okay, so from what I understand, okay, so this is my understanding from people who've spoken to me about this, is that prejudice just means an ill feeling towards a person based on a number of group membership issues. Do you understand what I'm saying? So like, what group socially people perceive them to be a part of, if you dislike them for that reason, that's what you call you're prejudiced against that person. But from like what I understand, racism is like a belief that like people have inherited attributes, and that like you're racist because you believe that like some person has superior, it's a superiority type issue. Do you understand what I'm saying or not?
Yes, you're saying that a level of superiority is intrinsic to like being racist.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, that was always my understanding, and that like people have sort of they have inherent behavior and attributes to them. And so, for example, a racist term would be like, well, black people are inherently good at like basketball, like something like that.
Well, okay, listen, sorry, I just wanted to cut in because, as a master of the slurs, I've actually got a term that perfectly summarizes this. I was doing some slur research earlier and I came across this and I thought it was quite good. There's a term called N-word rigging. N-word rigging, sure. Right? And you might be driving a car, and yeah, exactly. That's right. Listen, if you want to know slurs, you're in the right place. So basically, let's say you're driving your car down the road and it breaks down. Okay, the wheel falls off, the brakes stop, or whatever it is, right? You would say, "Oh my God, this car is N-word rigged," right? The idea being that like, a black person must have repaired this car because black people are like somehow, inherently worse at engaging in mechanics or something, and that's what's caused this car to break. So I think that like, that sort of thing, you're pointing to the fact that someone is black and using it to, in some way suggest a negative trait based on their skin color.
Yeah.
I would argue that like, it's not as bad as saying something like that, right? Like, I don't think you would ever say, oh, this is C-word rigged, because there isn't this wide perception that white people, are bad at fixing things. But if you point to someone and say, you're a C-word, right? And again, intent is absolutely key in all of these things, okay? And, if you point to someone and say you're a C-word, I think that particularly if it's to point out like some bad behavior they're engaging in, I think you are somehow linking the color of their skin or the tone of their skin with a bad behavior, right? And that's where the issue, I think, of essentialization comes in, where you're in some way essentializing them down to that trait and suggesting that behavior is linked to the skin color. It might not even be the intent. You might not even think about that. I don't expect people to think about this stuff when they're hurling insults about, Again, if you really want to do it, like calling someone the C word, I don't think it's going to like cause many tears or something like that. But I just think it's about being consistent. I think that.
Okay, I feel like this conversation is more or less over.